Welcome, everyone, to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner. This is PRT. Welcome to the real reality. So last week, obviously, if you were paying attention, you would know we were talking to some people. They were very colorful people. They were Italian Americans, and I say Italian Americans, but they were Italians, but they're very interesting. They went to Italy on a couples retreat. And they ran into something like a dogman, werewolf. I don't know. It's such a weird thing. But we're going to talk about a couple different stories and encounters that went on between this group of people. Oh, boy. Okay, so before we do that, join the Patreon, $10, $20, $30, $40, $50 tier. It really helps the show a lot. It is the lifeblood of the show. It does a lot for us. You can always donate if you feel like donating during the show, even during this chat, if you're on YouTube. Watch us, like us, subscribe to us. Give us some love, folks. Whether you're watching us on Spotify or whatever, the views really help liking and subscribing to the channel. Remember, Sunday night, we retell people's encounters. Monday, we open up, and anyone that has a crazy, spooky, scary, weird story can jump on and tell it. There were 3 weeks in a row where somebody came on, different people, and talked about vampires. Pretty interesting. So we get, ghost stories, dogman, aliens, Bigfoot. It runs the gamut. We have all kinds of stuff. People just talk about everything. And so we get a lot of different people from all walks of life that'll come on there, and it is amazing. So that's a lot of fun. Tuesday night, you know what Tuesday is. Tuesday night's the podcast episode, and then on YouTube, too, we drop it on like a dozen different platforms for you pod people out there. And there's these people that'll go, they don't go on consistently. I was like, yes, we do. It's the pod people saying that because y'all are the ones that we might miss an episode or something because we don't get it edited. That's all it is. But we go live. We always go live, and it's at least 3 times a week. And then we're on Wednesday night, and we retell people's encounters on Wednesday night. This started on a Wednesday night on June 30th, and we told Francine's story. Happened to her in Italy, in a villa in Milan. And so she had this like apartment right there in this little. Well, it's like on the edge of, it's like a suburb, whatever, but it's like used to be like a fort, like a fortification, and years ago, they turned it into like whatever, but she saw this goat-like creature that a lot of people were messaging me and saying, oh, this thing's like Baphomet, and I got to tell you that part right there, I do believe that people seeing that creature, with that, the breasts of a female and the genitalia of a male, I mean, like, I think that's part of the agenda, because if you notice, like, TV and movies, they'll show that.
Baphomet.
Yeah, they'll show like male genitalia and then female breasts, and, they don't show the female, you know what I mean? They'll just show the breasts. They're doing that as, like I said, I think it's part of an agenda that they're using.
Subconscious programming,
yeah. So, and when I was on L.A. Marzulli's show, we talked about how, I went kind of on a rant on there and like how they are, the evil is ramping up. And what is happening now, we are starting to see this evil.
They're not even trying to hide it anymore.
No, it's just everywhere, So anyways, tonight I have Nellie.
You're welcome.
I have Maddie. She's like, you're welcome, people. You're welcome. I am the best. I am the most humble and the best.
I didn't say that. I just said you're welcome.
Here to grace us with her presence.
So we have Nellie, Maddie, and Anthony. And while we got you on the show, Nellie, you've been doing a lot of work with the music.
Mm-hmm.
Where do they find that at?
The Random Files for now.
The Random
Files.
Files.
Some of it is on the video section of Paranormal Roundtable.
Yeah, the Random Files, and we have
some on TikTok.
And by the time this releases, it'll be on Paranormal Soundtable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's done a lot of work. Her new album, Dead Poets, really good. We still have the old album too. It's 10 songs, Monsters. That's a good
11 of the paranormal songs.
Yep, pretty good stuff. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, check that out. You're doing good work with that. And as always, Anthony, you do great work too. What do you do, Maddie? I don't know what you do. I don't know.
I'm just the comedic relief.
Really?
Since when?
Not very funny. I don't know.
Okay, so really? Like we weren't all laughing, last episode?
When?
I'm
That
not
was like a
appreciating.
week ago. What are you talking about? That was so last week.
You're right, I'm living in the past. What's wrong with me?
This
What
woman
is
just
that?
hangs out,
Is
lives
that
in the
laughter right
past.
here?
She's like, "Hey guys, remember that time I made you laugh? You remember Squidward? Remember Squidward? Squidward?" And you're like, "Not really. No, that was like a week ago." "Oh, okay. Well, I thought it was pretty funny." Keeps talking about it. And, you could be at a water park and she's like, "You remember that time I made you laugh back in 2000 something?" No, not really.
Yep, I hold on and I never let go.
I'm trying to be in the wave pool right now. What are you doing? Why are you trying to talk to me about this? So weird. So anyways, folks, we're just messing with you. We know Gertrude Ham. Chill out.
Oh, here we go.
If you listen to last week's episode, you can now call her Gertrude Ham, and you know
He's
why.
trying to make fetch happen.
No, you try to make fetch happen. What was it she was doing? You were trying to make it happen with the ham basket.
I wasn't trying to make it happen. I was
Those
trying
poor
to
girls,
explain.
the Dutch brothers, and both of them young girls. They were like 20 years old. They're like, "Yeah, it's hand basket." And Maddie's over there trying to roll the window down and yell at them. Don't try to scare them in the green.
I was trying to explain.
She's trying to make ham happen. No, it's not. You try to make fetch happen. It did, and I put the kibosh on that. I said ham is not happening.
Make ham great again.
You wish, Gertrude. It's not going to happen. Told you. But it will happen as far as a nickname goes. Okay? Mia Ham.
You know what? A win's a win. I'll take it.
Okay, Ham Solo. Whatever you want to do. All right? Booker T. Hamilton. Whatever you want.
Ham will rock.
Hamlet. Okay, all right. So anyways, enough talk about this, about Maddie's new nickname. No, here's what's going to happen. If you guys join the Patreon, you're going to get some really cool swag, and if you're in the $30, $40, $50 tier for sure, hit me up. Giveaways at prtpodcast.com. You can get your tumbler. It is a really nice, it's black and copper. It looks really sweet.
That's very pretty.
Yeah. So
Where is it?
where is it? It's not like they can see it.
That's true.
Just imagine it.
I'll post a picture in the group.
You were really looking for the tumbler to show the people who are
No,
on
I
the
was just
audio
wondering.
podcast.
She was. I saw her looking.
Okay, so you're trying to make Tumblr happen. Yeah. Okay, so this is what we deal with. Me and Anthony, you know how it is. We're professional.
Mm-hmm.
We're pretty professional. These two people come and they start messing stuff up, acting very unprofessional.
That lightning's gonna get mighty close.
Oh, you're throwing lightning bolts now?
No, what?
That's crazy, man.
Sorcery.
Sorcery. Witch! Thou art a witch! Throw her in the water. If she drowns, oops, she was not a witch. If she floats, she is a witch and must be burned at the stake. That's a raw deal, man. Either way, you're pretty much boned. Oh, if you die, well, at least you could get buried in a sacred ground. Because you drown.
Oopsies.
Oopsies. Can we get a do-over? Can we get a mulligan on that witch?
A woman says, I think, oh my God, she's thinking she's a witch.
What is this? Oklahoma? Stop. Oh, my gosh. All right. So anyways, speaking of witches, though, this person, let's get to the thing here. I mean, she was a striga. According to, what Veronica, her niece, and, Val, the one that told us the story, or one of the people that told us the story from last week. Oh, man. So this woman says, hey, I'm a striga. And she says it so nonchalantly. They're like at dinner, they're in New York. And she's just like, oh, by the way, I'm a striga. I can do readings and all this stuff. I know how to do all this. She marries a guy who we kind of called Prometheus. And Veronica actually doesn't talk to her aunt anymore because she said that she put a curse on her. And what was so weird about last week's episode, if you didn't listen, you got to go back and listen to it. The friend of Val, Edie, she and Val's husband, Doug, see something by a bridge that looks like a freaking werewolf. It's a long story short. They get back to the lodge, the main lodge at this couple's retreat, and they find out that Veronica she doesn't know where her aunt was. Briefly, she saw her in the spa area, and then she went to the pool. The story didn't jibe. Veronica's aunt says that she was by the pool. And it's really confusing because Veronica's aunt's name starts with a V too, so we're not even going to, but I'm not going to say her name. So her aunt, we'll just call her V. So Aunt V says, oh, well, we'll call the boyfriend Prometheus because the reason being they say he looks like one of the engineers from Prometheus, but his body was really hairy because they saw him at the pool, right, with his shirt off, but his head had no hair, which was so
That's
weird.
really odd.
That is so weird, man, to me, because they thought he had alopecia, and then Doug was like, no, he was sitting right there when they were in the what's that called? Not the spa, the heat room or whatever it's called.
Sauna?
The sauna, yeah. I was going to call it the spa, the sauna. When they were in the sauna, he's like, we were all in the sauna, and he had his shirt off. He's like, dude, the guy's hairy. And then they all see him at the pool, and he's like, jokingly, they're like, looks like a werewolf. But his head doesn't, And he had a very Greco-Roman looking nose, and that it just, he kind of looks like one of these, like, like
If you Google it,
if you Google it, yeah, it's weird looking. So just take our word for it. This is what we were told. So we're sitting there listening to this. This guy was not anywhere to be found, right? I mean, so they all left. They came back to the States. The aunt, V and Prometheus, they stay there for a couple more days. They had met a guy from Switzerland who claimed to have had an encounter with something wolf-like, canid-like, upright canid, when he was skiing in the Alps. There was like I don't want to call it an avalanche. It's not like really what it was. It was like a bunch of snow. Like it snowed, so there was like this snow drifts that ended up like piling up. So they had to clear it. So the people that were skiing couldn't go down the mountain, so they had to stay there. And the ski lift was, because it was snowing really bad, they had to just say, hey, you have to stay here until the next day, whatever. And so they stayed the night in the top of this ski lift. And he said, it was aggravating to him because, what he said, we'll call him G because I can't pronounce his name, Garibaldago or Gerald something. Anyway, I just say, let's call him G. He's from Switzerland. He tells him that he had been at that resort and heard this older couple talking about their child and their sister or daughter-in-law, their child being like an adult, but they saw something weird when they went out on this trail. So this guy sits down with them and begins to tell them and these French people that had seen when they were running away from this creature, they saw it. There were several people. And he told them, he says, I'd seen one of these things before. So it intrigued me when I heard this older couple talking about it, complaining to the front desk, much like those people did. And the front desk being very, like dismissive of it. This place where they were at also is a place where people, like there's a lot of people who used to go there, especially back in the 80s and 90s. And this happened like back, I think it was like in the 90s when this happened. And I didn't really ask the timeline. I just know she said like 20 years ago. It was over 20 years ago, so I'm thinking the 90s. And she said that it was, this guy just sits down and starts telling him, he's like, I had this encounter with something very similar when I was skiing in Switzerland. He is Swiss and Italian, and his dad is from Switzerland, his mother's Italian, and his wife is Italian. So they live in Switzerland, but they also have a home there in southern Italy. But this happened up in the mountains, or in northern Italy in the forest. And like I said on the last episode, a lot of people don't think of Italy as having that forested area. They do. They do, literally like 10 million, hectares or whatever. And so, this place where they were at, and I'm going to throw this out there, like it is known for being like a hangout where supposedly people from the Illuminati, they go there. The Illuminati being kind of like the Italian wing of the, like the people that run the world. You know what I mean? Like that's their contribution to it, And so, we kind of talked about that a little bit, not on the show here, but I talked to them about it. And if they knew that, because they were saying, well, yeah, they had heard that. And this guy from Switzerland was saying, yeah, there's a lot of, people that come here and they rent these out, these private rooms and stuff. And that guy, he's somebody who did a lot of research. His wife, her family was originally Croatian, but they lived in Italy, for like 2 generations or whatever. They came, like around the time before the war broke out over there. They saw the writing on the wall. They left. When Yugoslavia began to break apart, they got away and said, And so she was saying that in her homeland of Croatia, which she didn't live in very long, she was young when she moved there, but she remembers seeing something weird in the window of their house when she was a child that she first thought was like a bear. And this is the guy from Switzerland that we call G. And so he and his wife, they sat there and they drank some wine and they talked for hours. Well, they all went back to the States. The wife posts on her Instagram, I believe it was Instagram, that they had seen a werewolf. And she wrote it in like, I think it was in Italian, but they translated it, and it basically was saying like, we just saw something really wild. My husband has been looking for this, And then she takes it down because people started kind of being joking about it, making fun of it. And her husband, he's in business and stuff, and he doesn't need people thinking he's crazy. But he was pretty open about it. Like he just said, look, they're going to think what they're going to think. He goes, but if you see something like this, the more people that know about it, the better. So I have got a contact information for her, not him. I reached out to her. We'll see what happens if they actually respond. So we're going to go over his encounter. This is what was told to me by Val and Doug. They believe them. They believe that this, Weird thing is, V and Prometheus, they stay behind when Edie, Veronica, and their boyfriends, their husbands, whatever, and Valentina and her husband, they all come back to the States. So there were 4 couples that, in the self-proclaimed Striga, V, she stays behind with her boyfriend. Then the encounter happens with this guy, G, who's from Switzerland, and him and his wife see this thing with the couple that they're friends with that are from Italy. The timing of it, I got to say, is kind of weird because from the hours of like 5 in the afternoon or 6 in the evening, whatever it was, to like 9 o'clock at night, Prometheus is nowhere to be seen. They all have this encounter with this creature. Then he shows back up and makes up a story that he was in and out of the spa, the pool. Nobody saw him. Veronica goes into the hotel room. There's no wet towels. There's nothing, right? I mean, like, you would think there'd be something.
Mm-hmm.
Wet shorts or something. She was nosy, And, like Val said, she goes, we're Italian women. We're nosy. We did some investigating, And Doug was like, yep. He's in the background. And
it just solidifies
she's
their
like,
story.
you're not supposed to agree to that. He goes, well, it's true. You are very nosy. And then she's like, I'm that neighbor, that'll be like, what are you doing in your backyard? Are you burying somebody? What are you doing? And I said, I'm not that guy. I don't, I try not to pay attention to my neighbors. I really don't. I don't want to get to know them too much because then I don't want to have to explain to them, oh, yeah, what do you do for a living? I do some security. That's it. And then one day they find out I have a show. Then they're going to be like, that's where the weird people live. I don't need that in my life. I'm not going to tell them. I'm not going to tell them. I'm just going to tell them we do security. That's it. We don't need to know nothing else. I don't want to be the weird people in the neighborhood, right? So, but she was very, very cool. Her sister Frances was very cool. Shout out to them. They were very cool people. Fun to talk to too. Very gregarious, outgoing. I can't say enough good things. Found out where some good spots are to eat. But one of the things I thought about too was like, okay, so I started with this because I was like, where do I start? Veronica told Val that she was cursed by her aunt. So when she comes back from the trip, she confronts her aunt And she says, it is weird that they had this weird sighting. And, she goes, not even a week goes by. She's like, and you and your boyfriend come over. She goes, I'm missing one of my necklaces. She goes, I had this necklace. It was like a rosary. She's like, and then I had this cross that was on the wall and it disappeared. It was above the door. She thought that was odd. She says, these two religious things one that she had made of iron. And I told her, I said, the legends that vampires, fays, all this, they're not supposed to be able to come into your house if you cover it, if you put something of iron above the door. Front and back door needs to be covered. Put something there. They can't cross the threshold. Another interesting thing is when G told them the story, when they saw the Instagram post, they contacted him immediately. This was Val. Her and Veronica and Edie were all interested. The creature, and if you got to go back and listen to last week's, you'll know what this creature did. When it went toward the covered bridge, it stopped short of the water. And then when it went toward the bridge, it became invisible. Not to them, the people it happened to, but G and the people he were with, that's what they saw, was just this thing disappear. When they're getting back toward the lodge, they look back and they see something that looks grayish white, very light compared to what it was. They said it was black. So that's a weird thing too. Val is having all these weird dreams and nightmares. Veronica says, I think there's something up with my aunt. She comes over. My necklace is missing. My rosary is gone, which is, this rosary she would wear. She had it turned into like this silver necklace. And then she's like, and then my cross that was above the door is gone. Later, she finds the cross stuffed into a drawer, which was weird. She remembers that Prometheus came over there because he's a big, tall guy, because he does electrical work, right? He crawled around in their attic and did some work. That's when that thing went missing. She remembers him going around to the back door, going in through the back door. Then later she hears him going in and out through the front door. And then, of course, he leaves. The cross is missing, and she finds it in a desk like a week later.
How convenient.
Yeah. Yeah, and she says that he was wearing these gloves because he was working with what he says were live wire. So he had gloves on. Weird, right? And I did say this. I said, and I made a joke to Val. I said, I think it's a Latin thing because, Hispanic people, everything's Latin. People are Hispanic, but the original Latins were Italians. And I said, Latin women are like detectives. They find a hair out of place. So like, what is this? What is this? Somebody is cursing me. There is a hair that has been moved from my brush. Oh my gosh, I'm going to die.
You got to find something wrong.
But Hispanic women do the same thing. Like I noticed something about Italian women and Hispanic women do the same thing because they're all Latin, right? They cut their nails. They got to go and throw them in the toilet or they got to put them somewhere because if somebody gets a hold of your nails, they'll curse you. Right? Look, and Nelly raises her hand, right? See? Because they're going to put the paprika on you. You got to do something.
Funny thing is, I never even heard anything about that. I've just always, even when I was really little, I was paranoid, I guess. That
you're Latin. It's like it's born into your blood.
It's in the DNA.
I think so. So Prometheus comes over, and that's what we're calling him. And he messes with the electrical, whatever. And I said, did he do his job? She says, yeah, he did his job. Did a good job. But why would he take that cross down? I said, and then when she told me it was made of iron, well, yeah, makes sense. What or who he is, and I don't want to say, I'm not going to try and say this, but about a week after, she said not quite a week, so several days after he was at her house, her husband's in the backyard. She's like, he's got the water hose. He's like, he could easily hook up a sprinkler, but for some reason, he just loves to stand out there with the water hose and spray. And I said, you know what? I think guys just like to do that. They just like to stand there and spray water everywhere. It's like they're marking their territory. I don't know. My cousins do that. They're just like, sit there talking to you for an hour, just holding the water hose, You think the Astros are going to win this year? Let me water this grass over here. And I'll be like, you could put a sprinkler. No. We're just going to stand here and spray water. But, she says he'll do that. And she says that he was there and then it got dark and he's on the phone, got the phone to his ear. She's complaining that, folks, don't put the phone to your ear. Dead serious, don't do it. All joking aside, man, it is so bad for you to have that phone up against your body. And so she says he got the phone to his ear. She goes out there and she tells him, put the phone, do whatever. And this is Veronica. This is the one whose aunt is confessed striga, a witch, right? She says, I never thought in a million years that my aunt would do something like this to me. She goes, because I go right back inside. She goes, and then my husband is like banging up against the door because I had locked it. And I open the door and he runs back in and he's holding we have a basset hound. She says, you have a basset hound. He's holding it. And his name is Nicholas. That's a weird name for a dog, but whatever. And she says she's holding Nicholas and the dog is barking. And she's just like telling the dog to be quiet, calm down, whatever. She's like, I have a poodle. He starts running around in circles, flipping out, or whatever. We grab the dog. She's like, we got to go upstairs. There's something back there. She's like, immediately he's on the phone calling the police. Her husband calls the police. She's like, I can't get him to even tell me and calm down. She goes, I hear about it from him talking on the phone with the police. What he tells the police is this. He says there is a very tall prowler, about 6.5 feet tall, wearing a mask that was crawling around behind their house. He knew that something was crawling around. He walks over there. He looks through the fence. He sees this yellow eye. Then it stands up and it looks over at him. He's holding his cell phone. He just tells his cousin, I'll call you back. He hangs up the phone. He backs away. He's smart though. When he called the police, he didn't go, hey, I saw a 6.5 foot tall werewolf. He says, I saw a man wearing a wolf-like mask. So the police come. He's like freaking out. He's scared to death. Veronica's like, I've never seen this man act like this. He's 6'1". He's not a little guy. He said this thing towered over him. He said that thing was gray. The head of this creature was so weird. She said the head looked like a werewolf, like a wolf, had a snout, everything, but it had no fur. It was just gray, right? Yeah, and so he backs away. He goes and he sees these two hands come over the top of the fence, and it looks like it's trying to scale it, and he sees the chest and the hands, everything, and it's covered in fur, like a wolf, but the head doesn't have much fur. And so he runs back inside and he freaks out and he tells her, he goes, there's a freaking, thing, whatever. He wouldn't blurt out what it was. He got on the phone with the cops. So they're waiting. The police come. They go back there. They see that there's a bunch of tall grass in the back there. They notice that it's kind of pushed down, like something was back there. They know that. And they believe that there was somebody back there, but they just said, well, there's a bunch of grass that's been kind of matted down, but I mean, we don't know what it was. And he said, well, it looked like a man wearing a wolf-like mask, whatever. Couple days later, he's outside, the same thing. He wouldn't go outside for like 2 days. He let the dog out. He hears something grunting, kind of growling to his right. He looks over. Where they live, there's a neighbor right there, but they don't have a fence. Like their fence is like they let it get dilapidated or whatever. And then he said, my neighbor, he started trying to tell me that the neighbor tried to make them put that part of the fence of saying, oh, that's your responsibility. Like, no, it's your responsibility. Nobody did it because it's just nobody cared. They just let it get whatever. So then they made their own fence and let their neighbor's fence get rotted down, whatever. They have a dog in their backyard that they keep chained up, which is a horrible thing to do. Don't do that. The dog, they hear a yip, and then that's it. And then he hears this grunting, growling noise, and he hears a crunching noise. He grabs Nicholas, grabs him, takes him inside. He says it takes forever to use the bathroom. The poodle is running over there by the fence, and then he hears a bang, like something slaps the fence. He screams. She goes, I come out running. She's over there, grabs the poodle. When she does, she smells this weird, musty, dead smell. She says it smells like one time they had this rodent problem. They had a rat that had died up in their attic. She had to go up there and get it. Her husband was out of town. She's like, I couldn't wait a few days for him to come back. She's like, I had to go up there and get it, and it was that dead rodent smell. She goes, I smelled it. She goes, and then when we go back inside, she's like, our son-in-law had come over and was helping us clean the gutters the next day. The neighbor is out there, and they're saying, have you seen our dog? It disappeared. And then he says, you know what? I think my dad was outside, So tells Veronica, this is her stepson, whatever, stepdaughter's husband. Tells Veronica, he goes, the neighbor says that the dog disappeared last night. And she's like, oh my gosh. She goes, and then she asked her husband, and he said, yeah, I heard a yelp from the dog. I can't remember the dog's name. They said the dog's name. They tell the neighbor, yeah, last night we heard something, by the fence. They didn't tell him that, a week before or whatever, or a few days before, they had seen this creature. And then, of course, they think, well, this sounds crazy. You're talking about this creature, this being or whatever, it just sounds nuts. The weird thing about this creature too, the ears, like where a wolf would have like the ears go up on the top of the head. The ears, they said this thing kind of had ears like where the human's ears would be.
Like on the side.
And and it
like
went
a bat.
Up, yeah, kind of bat-like, elf-like, like weird. And he said that it had very human-like eyes, but they were glowing yellow. And so they didn't see it the next day. And see, now up to this point, Veronica still has not seen it. But then she starts having these weird dreams. Her aunt comes over. They eat dinner. Prometheus shows up. They're outside. He's smoking his cigar with her husband. And then he opens up to him about it. And he tells him what happened. And while he's talking, the guy stands up and stretches. He's like, and for a split second, her husband says he looks at this guy and he's smiling and laughing, kind of like smoking his cigar. And he goes, let me ask you a question. And he starts walking toward the back of the yard. They have a pretty big backyard. And he goes, was it right over here? And when he says, yeah, that's where it was. He says, oh, wow, that's crazy. He goes, and then when you heard all the noise from the dog, a couple days later, he goes, was it back over here? And he walks over there where
like a murderer. When
like,
they come
yeah,
to
like,
the back
he's
of
like,
the scene of the crime.
scene of the crime.
So he goes, yeah. And he started to get real uncomfortable, man. He goes, and then we go back inside and get this. He goes, yeah, we just, me and the gals are talking. This is what he was telling, what Veronica was telling me.
Mm-hmm.
I had her and Val on the phone at the same time at this time. Val already knew the story because she's like, tell him about this, tell him about that. And it's funny if you ever talked to, like, we had Lawrence Maloro on here talking about his werewolf encounters. Remember? And he was talking about his mom, Italian mom. My friend was Italian. His mother was like that. And she'll be like, tell him about this, Jack. Tell him about that. And you're sitting there going like, very much like a Hispanic mom. Like it's very similar. It has got to be this Latin blood thing. I don't know what it is. So we're sitting there and I'm like, I told Val, I said, hold on. Veronica's trying to tell me you're jumping ahead. You're kind of confused me a little bit. So he's like, we were in the den. We're talking. He's like, and my wife had baked ziti. Well, she has this. It's a very typical Italian dish, man. I've had it a million times. And so his wife had some extra meat that was seasoned but hadn't been cooked. She had it left, and then there was a pot with some noodles. And that's because you can only make a big enough pan, right? So she had a bunch of meat in there, and it wasn't cooked yet. So she's like, I'm just going to – and she goes, you can take it with you, whatever. And so they go in there, and Prometheus – has this ground. And what it is like ground beef mixed with pork, right? And she said we had a little bit of venison too. We mixed it all together, and it's really good. But it's raw. It's seasoned, but it's raw. And he's got a little bit of noodles on the plate, and he's eating that raw meat with a spoon, just eating gobs of it. And so he goes in there, her husband, and he's like, "Hey, guy, do you want to eat the cooked meat? We still have some on the stove." He goes, "Oh, you know what? I just I saw this in there, and I thought this was the dish. I didn't realize. He made up some really ridiculous.
Like after the first bite, it didn't click. Huh, this
And
isn't cooked.
This guy's gobbling it up, and he goes, "That's raw meat." And he goes, "Oh, I know, but it tastes so good. I'm so sorry." He goes, "I just love, really rare meat." And he goes, "Yeah, but that's raw.
And there's pork in there too.
And
So
there's
that's even
pork,
more.
there's hamburger meat, whatever." He goes, "I hope you don't get sick, buddy." And so he takes, and at this point, he's already feeling really uncomfortable after being outside with the guy. So he puts it back in the refrigerator, and he just still has some on his plate, and he eats it. He finishes it, doesn't touch the noodles, and then throws them in the trash.
Just like, we're just going to pretend like this isn't weird.
Yeah, exactly. And so he goes, I go back to the den, and so this is what Veronica was telling me. And, and Val was like, this weird guy. Next thing you know, for nights, several nights in a row, she has this weird dream. In the dream, she keeps getting attacked by something that comes out of the shadows that's big and tall and looks like a vampire. So I asked her point blank, I said, the vampire, what did it look like? She goes, well, she's like, how Nosferatu looks, and I'm thinking this movie that came out recently. She goes, no, the original. And I'm like, oh, okay. She goes, I haven't even seen that other goofy movie. She's like, and thank goodness. I told her, I said, don't do it. I told her point blank, I said, do not do it,
It's not.
Yeah. Yeah. I called out into the darkness and the vampire answered me and now he's stalking me relentlessly. Right? And there's no reason for it. You just call out into the darkness, "Yodeloo," and then the vampire goes, "I kill y'all." And he comes, and I don't know, that's a good vampire impersonation. But he comes and begins stalking you for no reason. He just found you out of a million women out there. He just found you and he comes after you.
Such a stupid premise for a movie.
Like a stalker ex.
Stalker. Like somebody.
Bram Stalker instead.
Yeah, Bram Stalker. So anyways, yeah, and so, and I stole that from Natty. Maddie said that. The vampire stalks me relentlessly.
Do it.
You can't put her on the spot like that. But anyway, Maddie made a joke about it or whatever. And so, but yeah, I told her, I told these ladies, I said, don't waste your time. But anyway, the movie though, she said it looked like that. It was kind of like that, but it had these ears. She's like, but then she said about the third or fourth night, she's like, I noticed this creature, whatever it was. She's like, it always had this kind of veil on its face. And I'm thinking that it had an actual, she goes, no, not like a real, like a shawl or, she's like, no, it was like something, it was like its face was.
It wasn't allowing her to see it directly.
Exactly. Thank you. She's like, it wasn't allowing me to be able to see the face. She goes, it was hiding behind a veil. It was hidden. So then she said that this thing eventually, though, she reaches up and grabs its face, and she goes, I was physically having an altercation with something. The whole time, my husband, who's supposedly having insomnia, he's sound asleep. And he only sleeps when I'm dreaming like this. She goes, and this is what she said. She said, every other time he's pacing around, he goes, I can't sleep. Something's in the house. I'm freaking out. I'm having all kinds of bad dreams, blah, 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 blah. And then I look over, and they're like, I'm dying. Something's attacking me. And then he's like, I can't sleep. I toss and turn, candlesticks in the dark, visions of bodies being burned. That's a good old voice. But it was funny the way she said it, though. She's like, this dude could not sleep no matter what. He drink a bottle of NyQuil, But she's like, he's out there working out. He's doing all kinds of Bowflex, whatever. He's over there. It's not a Bowflex. She goes, whatever. The Chuck Norris machine.
Chuck Norris.
He's like, I'm trying to get to sleep. And then he goes, I can't help it that the vampire came after you while I'm asleep or whatever it was. And so she goes, and it was weird. I was having these dreams. And she goes, I go over and I grab this and I see the one we're calling Prometheus. I see his face. She's like, but he had these big pointy elf ears and this big teeth and his face elongates like a wolf. She goes, and then I scream out, I cry out. She goes, and I had started holding this crucifix by my bed. I took it and I put it on him and he backed up into the shadows. She's like, I called my aunt the next day. She goes, I was headed to the gym and I just said, look, I said, I don't know what you're doing. She's like, don't ever come around me. Don't talk to me. She kept trying to call me back, messaging me on Facebook. And she's like, I don't want anything to do with you. Don't talk to me. She's like, the next day, After this, she goes, I just cussed my aunt out. I went off. I know it's him. I know it's her. They're messing with us. So they find a unalived cat in a tree. And what was so creepy about it was their cat had gone missing, and the cat that they found looked very similar to their cat, but it wasn't. This cat was like a male. Their cat was a female, and its tail had been like messed up. So this cat, and there was no like signs of how it passed other than it was exsanguinate. The blood was gone. And so she says there was all this weird stuff going on. Now, this is where Val comes over. Her husband goes out of town. Not Val. Veronica's husband goes out of town. I'm not going to say his name out of respect. He goes out of town, and his name, we'll call him P. Call him P. He has a job that he's concerned about, whatever. But anyways, Doug comes over there with Val. They stayed the night because Veronica was scared. All this stuff was going on. Doug says, dude, he goes, I get up, I go to the kitchen, I get a piece of lasagna. Because apparently Veronica's a very good cook, you know. He's like, I come back, I'm eating a piece of lasagna. He goes, and I just go to sleep. I wake up and there's like lasagna all over me. And I hear Veronica screaming. I look over and Val is just unconscious. I couldn't even wake her up. He goes, so I run up the stairs. He goes, and what I see, this is what Doug said, was this black shadow mass like move out toward the window and shoot off into the like sky, like it was gone. Veronica is screaming. So the next thing you know, they're all sleeping downstairs together in the den, like a bunch. He goes, we were like a bunch of scared chickens down there. You know, he goes, we're all scared. He goes, and then my son comes over and he's over there. He's got a rifle, you know, he's like, if something comes, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And, you know, we started talking and, you know, we talked about what we saw that time we were in Italy, and we thought this has got to be putting two and two together. He blurted it out. I waited for them to say it. I didn't want to say because I waited. He says, I think it's Prometheus. Now, he was calling him that. Like, we had all taken to calling him Prometheus. He goes, I think it's Prometheus. And I was like, do you really think? He goes, I absolutely do. He talks just like that. He said, this guy, besides looking like something from one of the Alien movies, he's a damn werewolf or a vampire. I don't know what he is. And then Val's like, she leans in. I could just picture it. She's on the phone. She's like, he's a vampire. He's a demon. There's something wrong with this guy. So when they got to be good friends with this guy from Switzerland that had gone on vacation or whatever. So I'm going to be talking to him. Hopefully I'll get to talk to him. He tells them what he saw up in the Alps that time when they had to stay the night when the snowdrifts hit. You know, it was like a real freakish storm. Boom. They get stuck up there. He's like, he was 17 years old. His brother was 18. He had a brother that was 19, and his best friend was 18. And then his cousins were there with him. They were twins. They were 16, right? So he was with 4 people. There was 5 of them all together. And then there was another little group, and they were females. He said, you know, wasn't so bad. There were some pretty girls there, but unfortunately we outnumbered them. So he's like, we were all trying to impress these really pretty girls. They were from Germany, and, you know, they were all giggling, laughing, trying to be like, yeah, macho man, whatever. And he's like, everything was cool. He's like, and then that night, the director, the guy that ran the place, calls up there, and the guy that they were stuck up there with, there were 2 of them. He tells them, you know, don't leave. Don't go outside for nothing because the snow is so bad that you won't be able to see anything. And if you do, it's whiteout, you know. It's like a blizzard, you know. And they're hoping that the next day they can get the ski lift going, and they were thinking they were going to be able to like ski down. They ended up having to take the ski lift, but the ski lift had to be shut down for the night. And he says the next day, you know, everything was fine. He goes, but that night, the younger guy, there was an older dude and a younger dude. The younger dude says, I'm going to sleep in the spare room. He tells him, he said, if you hear anything at all, you know, come and get me. I have a gun. And they were like, you know, teenagers, and not everybody at that time, you know, in Switzerland, they don't have guns, right? They're just like, oh, okay. You know, like they're kind of freaked out. He goes, trust me, you might need it. And they're like, asking this guy, he's in his early 20s. They're like, why do you need a gun? This is the guy in Switzerland, right? And he says, well, I don't trust certain things. He said the other guy was on there messing with the radio, and he looked over at that older dude, and the older dude looked up at them and looked across the room and just kept messing with the radio. And he says, hopefully you won't have to figure out why. So that scared the crap out of him, and they're like, what? So then he goes to his room, and they hear him locking the door, these big wooden doors, right? And they hear him locking these 3 locks, like some kind of movie, like, And then he tells them, like, he goes, I got my radio. Here, he hands him a radio. If you need me, radio me, I'll wake up. The older guy's messing with the radio. What was really weird to G about this was that he thought that he saw the older guy, sabotage the radio that he was messing with. It looked like he unhooked a couple of the wires. And he learned this from his brother. His brother's like, look, man, I'm not no radio expert, but this guy just detached a couple of these wires to the radio that works down to the station down below. Then this guy gets up, grabs a sleeping bag, goes into another one of the bedrooms and says, hey, I'm going to go. So there's only 2 bedrooms. He says, I'm going to be in this bedroom if you need me. About 1 a.m, they're all up. They're talking. They're not sleeping. They have some booze. And these girls, they're with them, and there's 5 dudes and 3 girls. 2 of the guys go and they crash out. They go to the couch and they crash out, and there's really nowhere else to sleep. There's one chair like it reclines, and then another whatever. They're playing like some cards. They have some couple of games or whatever. And he goes, at that point we hear this noise, like this roar come from outside, and we're like, what in the heck is that? And he says, and his brother, there's 3 guys, 3 girls at this point, right? The 2 twins had crashed out. They had bowed out. He said that it was just me, my cousin, my brother. We decide, or me, my brother, my friend, we decide that, there's 3 girls, 3 guys. Let's do this, He's like, we hear this noise, and one of the girls goes to the window. She goes, I see something moving out there. They had a light on, there was like a motion sensor or whatever. And it came on a couple times. They go to the door and they hear something. And then they remembered what the guy had said. Don't go outside, no matter what you see, no matter what you hear. Just ignore it, whatever. And so they start to hear scratching on the side of this little cabin that they're in. They go to the window. Well, the girl and his brother go to the window and they freak out. They scream and they run back into the living room and they start banging on the doors of these 2 guys that work there. The young guy, you hear him unlocking the door. He opens the door. He's obviously very tired. He's bleary-eyed, and he's holding the gun in his hand. And he goes, what's going on? And they're like, there's something out there. We saw something out there. He goes, at this point, my brother didn't even tell me what it was. He's like, what did it look like? And he says, oh, I don't know. It was tall, and it was black. And he goes, okay. He goes, y'all all need to come into my room. Y'all come, all of y'all, just come into my room. Let's stay in here. They look into his room and they see that the window is boarded up. Like there's, what I mean?
That's not
like
a good sign.
It's fortified. And the guy goes, y'all need to come in here now. And everybody runs and goes in to get in his room. The 2 twins are like, nah, we're tired. They're drunk. They're going to stay out there. They had drank most of the liquor, and one of the girls was really tired. She had already laid down in the recliner, and they couldn't get them to come. And he said, okay, whatever. So he closes the door, he locks it up. He gives them some pallets to lay on the floor. G says it was 2 girls, right? And 2 guys at this point. And he's like, there's 1 girl and 2 guys out there. We stayed, in the, on the floor or whatever. These are 3 guys, sorry, 2 girls. And he said, so there's 6 people in this room. Then they hear something bang against the wall. The guy just puts his head down. He goes, just ignore whatever sounds you hear outside. They're at the top of this hill, like this mountain, right? And it's not the highest point, but it's, the highest point that you're going to ski down. Let's put it that way. He says, we're pretty high up, right? And so his brother, he goes, my brother thinks he knows everything. He's just like, well, what kind of creature can walk around on 2 legs and be up here? They start joking around about it. He goes, what is it, abominable snowman? And the guy sits up and goes, just go to sleep. Stop asking questions. He's like, you don't want to know. Just, I don't want to tell. Just be quiet. Go to sleep. So then they're laying there and his brother goes, I just want to know because what I saw did not look like a human. And the guy gets aggravated. He sits up and he's like, I'm going to tell you one more time to shut the F up or you can go sleep. And then his brother goes, what's your problem? He gets all like, and the guy gets up and goes, we're all in serious trouble if we don't, go to sleep. He's like, or just lay there until the morning. He's like, there's nothing we can do in here. He goes, but your friends need to not be sleeping out there, but they're being stubborn. And he goes, well, I'm going to go sleep out there. And he goes, well, then do what you want, but I'm locking this door. You're not coming back in no matter what happens. So then his brother looks at G and G's like, well, he's got to back up his brother. And he goes, well, I'm going to go out too. He goes, I don't care who stays or who goes, but I'm not opening that door. He goes, if you're in here with me, you're safe. If you go out there, you're not. And while this is going on, his friend grabs the gun that's laying there on the nightstand. They all go out except the two girls. The two girls are staying in there with that guy because they think he's got the gun, whatever. They go out there to the living area, and there's just like a kitchen, the living area, hallway, 2 rooms. It's not a big place. It's just a little, and then there's like a loft where it looks like they just keep like equipment and stuff. He goes and he lays back down. And it's really cold in there. And so one of the girls starts kind of complaining. And then you hear like somebody saying, what the F? What the heck? And it's that guy. And at this point, he opens the door and he comes barreling out of the room. And he's like, who's got my gun? Who has the gun? Where is my gun? And the 2 girls come back out and they're like, it's so cold in there. We're going to stay out here where the fireplace is, blah, 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 blah. When they start arguing, screaming, and yelling, they hear this bang on the door. Then they hear another bang, bang. And they see the door literally like pushing. You could see snow coming out of it from the top, from the bottom, and whatever. And he turns and he goes, I need the gun now. I'm not playing. His friend says, okay, I took it. Here it is. He grabs it from him and he goes, you don't even know, man, this whatever. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're dealing with. This thing out there, it's not human. It's not a normal creature, And so the guy, his brother, tells this guy, he says, I saw something. And one of the girls is crying. She's freaking out. And she's like, yeah, we saw something. It looked like a wolf or something like that. And the guy says, yeah, it was on 2 legs. It was really big. It was really tall. At this point, they go past this guy and they start banging on the door of the older dude to try to get his attention, wake him up and say, this guy's a psychopath. He's got a gun. He's waving it around. We're freaking out. I don't know what's going on. Then at this point, they hear something bang up against the back where the back door is. These doors are heavily fortified. They're locked up, whatever. He tells them, the older guy, he says, the older guy's my uncle. These guys, they're not Swiss. They're from Eastern Europe somewhere. They don't know exactly where. They couldn't tell by their accent. They didn't ask. They were just kids, And he says, the older guy, he goes, this guy you work with, he goes, that guy's my uncle. And I can tell you right now, he's not going to answer that door. So they keep on messing with this guy. They're messing with this guy. He opens it's a revolver. He opens it up and he goes, where are the bullets? And then there's this whole thing again. The kids don't want to tell him. G's witnessing all of this, and he says they're talking about the gun. There's no bullets. He gets really irritated with them. So then he tells them, he says, this is why things happen the way they do. And he walks over there, and he opens the door to where his uncle is at. You want to talk to my uncle? He opens the door. He goes, go ask him yourself. When the door opens, they're all standing there, all these kids. They look in. And there's nobody there. His uncle is not in that room. And the window was open partway. And he walks over there and he shuts the window, locks the window. And while he's standing there lecturing them about needing this gun, or why he needs the gun and why he needs the bullets, G said, I felt like I was going to go unconscious. He goes, I'm sitting there at this high altitude. This guy's over here giving us this speech. He goes, this creature comes walking up and looks at us through the window. He's like, I'll never forget as long as I live. And it looked like a gigantic werewolf. And then he goes, this thing hit the glass, and was looking around at them, eyes kind of darting back and forth, very human-like. And they start screaming and freaking out. And then the kid the young guy looks over, looks at the window, sees it, and runs out of the room with him, closes the door, and says, give me the bullets. I need them now. So they all start screaming at each other. They don't know who's got them, whatever. They had put them in a nightstand. The friend of his had taken the gun. He put him in a nightstand. He goes and starts fumbling for him and hands it to them. They hear psh, like something breaks through that glass. Then he goes toward the bedroom and he says, I'm going to count to 3. He's loading the gun. He's screaming at this creature, and he tells him in some language that they don't speak, and he tells him, he goes, I'm going to count to 3. And he goes, and I could tell he was counting in some other language. He goes, when he got to 3, he opened the door and he started firing into the room. They all stand there holding their breath. By this point, it's almost daybreak. It's starting, the snow had stopped, it was letting up. They don't see anything. He's like, I was the one that was brave. G said this. He goes, I walk over and I look. There's nobody in the room. He said, the guy's like, it's cold, but he's sweating. He's just sitting there and he's just like, he looks at him and he goes, you stupid kids, you stupid kids. You don't understand. He's like, my uncle. He's like, he's out there. And that's all he said. And he goes, just stay out here. He said, at this point, he starts freaking out and kind of waving the gun at them. And he said, just stay there. Don't move. He goes, and they sit there. He goes, what felt like hours, but it was probably only like an hour, And he said it felt like forever, an eternity. He said, the next thing you know, the door opens, the front door opens. It's a guy with a key. He's like, and in walks this guy with his clothes on, just all disheveled, looks like he'd been, out running a marathon or whatever. And he's like blowing into his hands and stuff. And he goes, I went to look for help. I was gone. Oh, did anything happen? It's like he's fumbling around for excuses. Then he goes back to the bedroom, and then he goes, the other younger guy goes, and then they start arguing and yelling at one another. And he goes, that was our story. He goes, the next, hour or two, we got on the ski lift and we left. He goes, and I remember just looking back at those two up there at the top of the hill. He goes, and I remember the young guy just chain smoking and looking at us with this 1,000-yard stare. He goes, and the older guy was just staring down at the snow, not even looking at us, like with this shameful look on his face. So that's that story. So that is what got that guy into it. And now this, of course, is not him telling the story. This is them, these people telling me what he told them. He told them the night that they saw that they were all hanging around and by the pool. He told them, but they were in this like indoor heated pool. They had an outdoor pool and indoor pool. And they were all there, talking, whatever. And this guy told him, this is what happened. He goes, and what Doug told me, he said, when this guy told me this story, he goes, dude, I looked him in his eyes. He was making eye contact with all of us. I knew that this guy had been through something. And he wasn't making this up. And they would like for him to talk to me, which hopefully I will be able to talk to him and get the story directly from him. And if it's the same story, then you've already heard it, but he does have a very thick accent. He speaks English, but he's not, English, he's not super fluent, but he can communicate. But can you imagine? So that right there would speak to the fact that maybe this guy, the uncle of this guy, was a werewolf. And that's what I'm thinking, right? And this guy happened to be unlucky enough to be up there, and of course, these stupid kids.
Oh my gosh!
They just it
I
probably
was just irritated listening to that. Like, why aren't you like? So many bad decisions.
Drinking, being stupid,
no survival instinct,
nothing. Just a bunch of dumb kids that created a situation where, and it could have gone really bad. And that young guy, they said he was just exhausted. He looked exhausted, and he was just like, "Look, don't do this, don't do." They did everything you weren't supposed to do, and But, the guy, he almost ended up having to unalive him. I guess there's a situation there where he just used to dealing with this guy or something. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It
Yeah.
doesn't seem the same as the encounter with Prometheus in that this guy was obviously trying to protect them from what clearly was his uncle, and the way he said his uncle kind of like ashamed when they left. So it doesn't kind of makes you wonder, was he afflicted with something that he didn't want, and now it's like just something that he's dealing with, you
Yeah.
know? Because it doesn't seem like malevolent in the way it was with, what's his name, Prometheus,
Mhm.
like intentionally stalking. It was like, well, no control over this, so kind of just have to deal with this and
And
manage it.
after G heard that older couple talking about it on his first trip there, he knew there was something there. He spent, a part of his life looking for this, just to find, his brother, totally different. His brother didn't want anything to do with it, doesn't want to talk about it. The situation that went down with these people, Veronica's aunt, she just quit talking to them, quit messing around, whatever. They all started having these weird dreams it went on and on. Val says to this day she has dreams where she's in that covered bridge and there's this werewolf behind her, which she didn't see that at the time. It was something invisible. But I'll leave you with this, folks. There are legends that things that are evil, spiritual, whatever, that they can't cross certain bodies of water. Now, maybe he can cross bodies of water. I say he because I do believe it was Prometheus. I say Prometheus because that's what he looked like. But think of this. I put the pieces together for this one, and he took the metal cross down from the door, I believe, so he could come and go. I think he took, or she took, that rosary, got rid of it. It's silver. I think that he is the unaliver of the dog. I also think that he was the creature that was out there in those woods, and I'll tell you why. I think that when he went to the water, he had to go into like a spiritual form. He wasn't, you know what I mean? And if you think about it, there are entities who can't cross those bodies of water. They can't, materialize with the presence of iron. So he's something, I don't know what, maybe not human. And I'll take it a step further. I think that when he saw this werewolf creature, it didn't have any fur on his head, just like he doesn't have any hair on his head. So when I told them, I said, man, they had not even really thought when they were telling me about it. That's when I was like, okay. I told them, I said, do you remember you said that this thing looked like it was a naked mole rat on top of its head, but it had a bunch of hair on the body or fur. Prometheus didn't have any hair on his head, but he had hair all over his body.
Too many coincidences.
Yeah. And Val was like, oh, I didn't think about that. She goes, that was the one part they didn't think about. They were already thinking it was him. They knew that. Because the guy was over there. Oh, was it over here? Oh, was it over here? Like he was getting off on the fact that they, without coming out and saying what he did, he was very proud of what he was able to do. And then eating the raw meat, that was another thing that was weird,
He just enjoyed tormenting them. When he
weird
was
thing about, he enjoyed messing with them. A weird thing about the guys up in the Alps. They noticed in the refrigerator there was no food. There was no food. There was a bottle of wine. And here's a weird thing. They were going to drink it because they ran out of vodka, because that's what those guys had was vodka up in there. They found a hunk of what looked like beef, but it was raw. And then there was like a little bit of stuff like for sandwiches or something that looked like it was just a little bit. It didn't seem like these guys, both of them were kind of big guys. Why would they just have that little bit of food? And then this hunk of raw meat that looked like it had been chewed on. This is the guys in the Alps, right? They noticed that. The wine, when they poured a glass of it, it was real thick and dark. And when one of the girls was the first one to take a sip, she spit it out and said it tasted like it had gone bad. Then one of their friends, the guy that had taken the gun and took the bullets out of it because he was scared of the kid. He thought the guy was, a maniac. And can't blame him. These kids didn't know what was going on. he tasted it and he spit it out and he goes, that's blood. So the bottle of wine that they found was blood. So who's drinking that? I mean, like, if this guy's uncle was a werewolf, does the werewolf drink the blood? Does he eat the meat? What is that? So there wasn't really any food there, and there were these glass jug of water. It was very whatever. But those guys obviously don't live there, but if it gets bad, which it does on occasion, they have to stay there. And, I wonder if they weren't both weird, something was going on. Because, and I'll leave you with this right here. G said that the young guy was very, very pale. I mean, he was like almost translucent. He was so white. So that's a weird thing. I don't know. Anyways, folks, weird, wild stuff here, Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being the best of what makes PRT what it is. Oh, before we go, I didn't even ask. What are your guys' thoughts? I didn't even ask. I was going to say, let me start with you.
I do have a question. Do you think witches are born or just made?
I think both. I think I think you have the ability, like what we call it in Spanish, the ojo. You're born with that, and you can go either way. You can be really good or you can be really evil. It's up to you. And here's the thing, too. How many people in this society that we live in this world, I know if you're a PRT listener, you're on top of things. You're a winner. You're smart. You're winning at life because you have knowledge. Jesus says we die for lack of knowledge, right? If you are not, though, and let's the NPCs, as we call them, the non-playable characters out there. The average IQ, as Dick Richards said on the show, was like, 89 or something like that. It's pretty bad. There's these, we were talking about it earlier. There's these people that go around and they're like, oh, do you know why we have the July 4th or whatever? Freedom from Japan. We fought Germany. We fought Brooklyn. These people they're so ridiculous. They don't know who Russia, they don't know who we fought or why. They don't know that it was Britain.
Idiocracy unfolding.
Yeah, it's just so bad. So you have those kind of people, but then you have these people who are born with a lot of ability, a lot of power, and it's easy to be born with a lot, to be smarter than everybody else because people are so dumb. I'm being serious.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
But you don't have to stay dumb. You can be born that way. We're all born ignorant, but you don't stay that way.
Strive for knowledge.
It's an intermediary state, not permanent, not supposed to be. But to answer your question, yeah, there's people that are born and have that ability who are, have the ability to transcend or go deeper into the occult and be evil, be dark. And so I think that I think a person's ability to be one, they're born with it, right? To a person. If I had to pick one way or the other. But to become one is a choice that you make, that you're going to sacrifice not only your future, but your true bonds with God and with Christ and with the Holy Spirit and, of course, your fellow man. Yeah. Because you become a completely self-centered, selfish creature. And you do evil, you do wicked. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think the word witch, people just put it in one single box, and that's it. But I think that the word means like other things, like people that, I can't remember what I was thinking about it, but like you have people that are born with it, but born that way, then they're born with a natural gift. But I think that people that seek it out, then they're what people see the word witch is, because I think if it's not given to you, then you're taking it and it's not yours. And it's just, for the lack of a better word, it doesn't mean just witch, that it can mean two other things. It's just that people have to know who and what they're dealing with,
This is very interesting, and we talked about this on L.A. Marzulli's show. We called it, me and Anthony were jokingly calling it the Bigfoot dilemma of Tennessee, right? We were kind of joking around about that. But yeah, that can lead into next week's episode. So, folks, thank you for tuning in, and we'll get to y'all's opinion at the beginning of next episode. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Paranormal Roundtable podcast. Good night.